Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 16th. Planning Commission. I'm sorry. Yeah, welcome to the meeting of the November 16th meeting of the Skokie Planning Commission. Tonight we have one case. First of all, let me call the attendance. Commissioner Osley,
Present.
Commissioner Manchella, Commissioner Scott Berman,
Present.
Commissioner Franklin,
Here.
Commissioner Gupta is absent. Is that right? Yeah, he's absent. Commissioner Giovannavu,
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Berman,
Here.
Commissioner Matei,
Here.
and I'm here. And we do have a quorum. First order of business is to ratify the meetings for the last minute. Any corrections in the minutes? None? All in favor of ratifying the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Minutes have been approved. We have one case tonight. The case is case 2023-30P, zoning chapter amendment. The village is requesting an amendment to section 118, Article 2, Article 5, Article 9, Appendix A, and any related sections of the Skokie Village Code to establish provisions for co-working as a special use in on retail streets and in mixed-use zoning districts. Paul?
Yes, sir. Good evening, all. Paul Reese, Planning Manager, here to talk about this text amendment for co-working. One note I'd like to say is we're not going to make any changes to Article 5 at this time. I spoke with the zoning administrator and we talked about it, and we don't see the need to change that specific section at this time. That section kind of regulates specific, like cannabis use, adult uses, daycares and such, where we lay out very specific rules and regulations for each specific use. And we didn't feel like that was quite necessary in this case. We're gonna regulate it using the special use process of this body. In the staff report, I go into a little bit of detail about co-working and what it is and kind of where it came from. I think everyone in the room is pretty familiar with the terminology and how that's kind of been very popular over the years, maybe right-sized a little bit after kind of WeWork kind of imploded a bit and some of the larger ones grew a little too fast. But that notwithstanding, there still are these types of uses around, and our village code doesn't speak to them at all. Currently, we use, let me get the terminology right, office not otherwise listed as a way to handle requests for co-working space. And so using that terminology in that section of the code, it's not allowed in mixed-use districts. And so I'm proposing tonight to change that to have them as a special use in mixed-use zoning districts. We feel like, staff feels like, there are some ancillary benefits to these types of uses. They're not quite retail, and so we should treat them as such, and we should definitely review them and have this body review them and have the board review them. But they're also not quite office, and so it's kind of that in-between space, and we just want to have a place that the code talks about it so we can regulate it and get some of those benefits from those uses in our mixed-use districts.
My question would be, how are you gonna regulate these, and how are you gonna, let people, or let the retailers know that this is special use?
How are we gonna let them know? I mean, it'll be listed in the use table in the zoning code.
I understand that, but let's say, somebody has a space and they just rent it out without checking the village code.
I mean, I guess it would come up in permitting, that would get tagged at permitting if they are proposing a use like this. That's not just a standard office with one tenant, one lease. So those, there are co-working spaces in the village now. They're one at Old Orchard in the office tower there. But like I said, it's just regulated as office. Sorry,
I just wonder how we're gonna
terminology is funny to me. Office not otherwise listed.
Yeah, I just wanna know how we're gonna inform the public on this.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna do much outreach or informing. It'll just be case by case as they come in. you know, like I said, that have been caught at permitting time, like, obviously, it's better if the property owner or business owner does their due diligence and knows what the code is and applies in the appropriate manner, but if they don't, we do catch it when it comes in for certificate of occupancy or other permitting.
Okay.
Was there antipathy? I didn't understand the staff analysis, and it's fine with me, but was there some feeling against these things in retail areas previously, or
You-
mixed-use areas, because they didn't want to take up what would otherwise be?
Yeah, I don't know if it was
retail?
as strong as antipathy. I think the focus was retail streets specifically wanted to focus on retail type uses because of that kind of foot traffic, the in and out, like vibrancy in the downtown, et cetera. So I don't think a whole lot of thought was always put into like, well, what other not retail things drive those kind of activities as well. Just in discussions, the economic development team had been talking with some of these types of users, and you know, got Brian Augustine and I kind of talking about it. And we're like, well, actually, we don't really have a definition for it in our zoning code. We don't have a way to kind of regulate them. So that was really the genesis of this.
And one other question, we had never previously stopped a single-use office from a retail space. A State Farm office, for example.
From a
From
retail street.
A retail street, a State Farm office could occupy retail space on a retail street.
No, I don't think an office could use a retail space on a retail street.
Oh, my. I say that because I think we have a lot of
Lawyer's
that.
offices on Oakton Street.
Yeah, all over.
Um,
That's the reason I'm asking the question about the antipathy toward it. And
Right.
and maybe at one time we thought everything should be retail, and it would be, but it
Right,
wasn't gonna
right,
be.
right.
And then we just allowed the creeping in of, I'd say, dozens of office uses on retail streets or in retail store fronts. Maybe the street has to be defined differently.
right.
I think real estate, insurance,
Right.
law.
Right, I think there are a handful of
County.
cases like that that are allowed. You're right. Yeah, real estate, now that you mention it, yes.
So those are exceptions?
Those
or-
are exceptions to the rule of general office. That's right, yeah.
Is this similar to the Regis plan, what Regis does?
It is, I mean, Regis would be defined as a co-working space, and so
Right.
that specific one, if they proposed an outlet of theirs in the downtown or mixed-use district, yes, it would fall under this review process. If they proposed it at Old Orchard again, it wouldn't because it's not in a mixed use.
Right,
Right.
okay, thanks.
So I have I think it's a quick question, and I will acknowledge that I did not go back and read the individual articles. I just read the content that was provided specific to this. And so my initial assumption in reading it was was sort of a classic example of times have changed.
Right.
Language is opaque at best, certainly not clear. So this was a classic example of we need to introduce new language to clarify this specific use.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so, but the question I was going to ask in hearing the questions about, you know, how would we regulate this and maybe the relationship to other uses that I quite frankly hadn't contemplated. Anyway, this is a bad way of asking it maybe, but is this a 70-30 proposition? Is it 80-20? In terms of the intent, the purpose, why we're doing this? Is it disproportionate because of what I said, which is sort of an oversimplification? We need to improve the language? Or is there an actual demand for this as a consequence of, you know, a need to regulate?
Right. Is there a demand for the, I mean, like I said, the economic development people have taken calls on it and have raised the question and kind of got the conversation started. But it definitely is one of those, Brian and I have conversations all the time about things that don't quite make sense, or the kind of mixed messages in the zoning code and how to clean those up. And so we've introduced a handful in the past 6, 8, 9 months, what have you, and probably this winter we'll pull together a bunch to do and kind of one in a bigger swath. But this was one that kind of came up, seemed pretty straightforward and simple, so.
Okay,
That's
so
what we
I think I understand. I just want one more thing to clarify. So
Mhm.
it does sound like that what you're describing is this is an improvement to the language
Yes.
based on maybe conversations or certain things that have occurred, but this is a forward proactive act. It's not because there's some very specific property or case
Right.
or concern that exists And by doing this, we may not have addressed it, but we will address it going forward. This is
Yeah, no, correct.
Okay.
That is not a specific
understood.
building or property that came up
I-
that we're trying to fix. It's just proactive, like our downtown could use a little help. So little things like this all along the way can only go forward in that. And we want it to be a special use specifically so staff reviews it, this body hears it, and it goes to the board. And so we have those kind of touch points, and we can add some conditions. We can talk about like the specifics. Is there something else close by that maybe this doesn't make a sense in that particular one, storefront building or what have you.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a very specific property that we needed to understand the specifics of that as a consequence of its relationship here.
Got
So it's seeing as that is not the case, no more questions for me.
Okay. And
But
just to follow up
obviously-
on the Article 5, that's the section for specific use regulations. And so, like I said, we didn't think it was needed this time, but we could always go back if it becomes a problem, which I don't really foresee. We could always go back and list 3, 6, 8 specific conditions of co-working spaces must do this or cannot do that. If we see that as necessary, but again, like I said, I don't foresee that being a problem.
One thing I would say is, it'll still have to come before us as a special use anyways. It's just right now, if they were to approach the village in the mixed-use zoning district, they would be told the answer is no.
Right.
So this opens it, but restricts it to a special use so that there has to be a
Right,
permit
there
for
has to
each
be.
one of the requests.
Correct. That's all I have. Are there any other questions?
Any other questions?
One-
Yeah, sure, please.
So do you know if we ever do turn down, not one of these, but a singular office use in a retail area? We taking notice of the fact that there are dozens of these? Have we-
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and that would be one more for Brian Augustine because he gets those intakes. The planning department doesn't get specific business applications
Okay,
in the office, but I
I
could
believe
definitely run a report and ask him for the data on that for sure.
good.
I believe downtown we have had requests that we've turned away, but the way that we've handled that is now the corners are protected. The in-buildings within the block are allowed for different uses, and that's sort of the way we protected the corners of high visibility.
In the code, you think? Or just an
That's the way
informal rule?
downtown, that's the way downtown is zoned.
Okay. All right, I'd just like more information on that another time, but this is
Yeah,
fine with me.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, no further questions? Commissioner Berman,
I just make a motion that we accept the staff report as presented
with the changes to Article 5,
with the changes to Article 5.
or no changes to Article 5?
Right.
Striking.
Removing it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Unchanged.
Changes, right?
I second.
Second, thank you.
Unchanged.
Okay. Call for the vote. Commissioner Osley,
Aye.
Commissioner Manchella,
Aye.
Commissioner Scott Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Franklin,
Aye.
Commissioner Giovannahu,
Aye.
Commissioner Jeff Berman,
Aye.
Commissioner Matei,
Aye.
no vote. Motion passes. As a note to the reporter in the audience, we are just a recommending body to the Board of Trustees. We don't have a final vote on this. This will go before the Board of Trustees at one of their meetings, and they meet on the first and third Mondays of each month. And if you need a copy of this report, give Marlene your contact information. We'll send you a copy of the report. And we will also notify you when this case goes before the board. Thank you. No other business before the board? This meeting is adjourned.
Was your business, Peter, in Greece or in Germany or both?
Greece.
But the only way to get back easily was through Germany. I came back from Greece a couple years ago.